Dallas Cowboys at the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams win 30-22. And
did we have a primary cause of death for the Colts?
I feel like we could do like a whole segment. I think the Cowboys, we really need to have one that we just make we'll make it like a whole segment at the end.
Okay.
I think we'll come back to it.
All right.
Okay. So let's discuss Rams and Cowboys. 30-22 win for the Rams. The rushing attack for the Rams was very efficient, with C.J. Anderson coming in 23 carries for 123, and then his backup Todd Gurley with 16 carries for 115. So that's pretty good. C.J. Anderson 2 touchdowns. Gurley had 1. They combined to force 7 missed tackles between them. I think that's one of those things with the Rams, with their offense. When you see all the yardage that they get, and comparatively the missed tackle numbers aren't that great, right? When you have 23 carries, 60, they combined for 39 carries, only forced 7 missed tackles, but they ran the ball for over almost 240 yards between the two of them.
Yeah.
That tells me the scheme in the offensive line is giving them some holes. They're taking what's there. They're, finishing runs pretty well. Gurley had that really nice touchdown run, but they don't make a ton of guys miss in open space.
Yeah, but the Rams' offensive line was one of the liabilities in the playoffs, according to Booger.
Oh, God.
Called out by Andrew Whitworth after the game, by the way.
He called out Booger?
Andrew Whitworth did, yeah.
He did?
Yeah. Because actually the Rams' offensive line has been one of the best in the league
It was
this
a poor
season.
take from Booger, I'm not going to lie. Again, Booger, if
terrible.
I was talking to you to your face, I would say that's a poor take.
Awful take.
Because in his point, I saw him follow up with some tweets, was, well, did you see the Eagles and Bears games? Well, yes, when you go up against 2 out of the 3 best defensive fronts, sometimes the defense is going to win and do a pretty good job. And that was the case. But if you're looking at the whole season, the Rams, one of the best offensive lines in the NFL.
Yeah.
Top 3.
The Rams' offensive line in this game did not allow either a sack or a hit on Jared Goff, and combined allowed just 2 hurries.
The 1 hit was allowed by Todd Gurley.
Yes.
That was the one time Jared Goff officially got hit.
So Gurley and Tyler Higbee, tight end, allowed the same amount of total pressure as the entire offensive line combined in this game. So that right there is a pretty big part of this game not going Dallas's way. Literally almost no pressure whatsoever on Jared Goff. Plus this idea that if you're going to do that, the chances are they're going to be running the ball, and they couldn't stop that either. This went basically the way we were predicting it, right? That Dallas did come out with the game plan that had stymied this team down the stretch in those games, like the Bears game, the Eagles game.
Yep.
They did come out kind of dropping people into shallow zones, trying to take away the passing game, effectively daring the Rams to run the ball with Todd Gurley. And this time, instead of saying, no, we want the passing game, the Rams said, okay, let's run it. And they loaded it up with Todd Gurley and C.J. Anderson, and they took advantage of those light fronts, and they ran the hell over the Dallas Cowboys.
If you run for 5 to 7 yards a pop, that becomes valuable. Like if you can ensure that you're going to run for 5+ yards per carry, I'm not saying rush 60 times, but that's obviously a more efficient brand of playing football. But it goes back to, again, that the numbers that everybody's finding is that successful runs start with actually the level of play, the quarterback, then the offensive line, right? All these other things, and then, by the way, it's the running back. This really exemplified that.
Yeah, I mean, this was a really big game for the Rams, because my big question for them heading into this game was, had teams started to figure them out down the stretch, which is if you take away the one thing, or if you've identified the thing they want to do and you figured out how to take that away on defense, they hadn't yet shown the ability to adjust and to make, the change off the back of that and go to something else in a way that great teams do. They figure out what you're taking away, they go to something else, and they still have success. The Rams hadn't done that yet, and they'd struggled when teams had taken that away. This is the first game where they figured it out. They went, okay, if you're going to take away that, we'll just run the ball 39 times between those 2 players, and we'll win that way. I think that's huge for them, because ultimately the Rams are a really good team. They are still the #1 graded team at PFF overall. This is a very good team that had, and everybody gives the credit to Sean McVay and this magician system, but it had kind of been figured out towards the end of the season. And this is the first time we've seen, okay, he's made the adjustment. He's at least figured out.
They have the adjustments.
How
they
to go
have balance.
away from that.
It's huge. Did you see the Dallas defensive grades?
Yeah, it's all bad.
The highest grade, other than Damian Wilson, who played 10 snaps, DeMarcus Lawrence with a 62.
Yeah.
Pretty much everybody on the Dallas team played below average. 62 snaps for DeMarcus Lawrence, which also matched his PFF grade for the game. Their defensive tackles, Karan Reed had 25 snaps with a 38 grade. Malik Collins, 65 snaps with a 40 grade. Antoine Woods, 49 snaps with a 48 grade. And even our boys, Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith, who we said have played so well this year, Leighton Vander Esch with a 52, Jalen Smith with a 57. Just not great from that defensive front seven for Dallas.
Yeah, 10 missed tackles for the defense. I mean, they really just got run right over. You have to credit the Rams for making that adjustment and dominating because of it. And again, it's another team that becomes... I think we're lucky because the 4 remaining teams have probably been the 4 best teams in the NFL this season. You could make the debate between the Patriots and the Chargers,
right, but
the way they were out-coached in that game kind of renders that argument pretty conclusively the other way anyway.
No, I'd say that's about right. The other interesting nugget from this game is Aaron Donald only had 1 pressure on 38 rushes. And people have talked about the Rams. Everybody looked at this and said, well, the Rams can't stop the run. Dallas loves to run the ball. They've got Zeke. Therefore, that's a weakness. But the other part about the run game is I think most teams, and was it Troy and this was Troy and Joe on this one, right? Troy may have made the point. He doesn't make a ton of great points, but he may have made the point that the Rams said, like, if we want to stop the run, we'll stop the run, right? I think most teams are of that mind. If they want to game plan to stop the run, they can do it. You just get the box count, right? You just throw more guys up there, and generally you're okay. We're saying Dallas got beat up in the run game because more often than not they said, all right, we're going to back off a little bit. We're going to trust our defensive line, and if you don't have the numbers advantage, you'll give up a little bit more. I felt like the Rams tried to stop the run a little bit more. And Ndamukong Suh has a monster game against the run. He's still capable of that. So they did a better job of slowing down Zeke in that rushing attack.
They did. This is probably Suh's best game as a Ram. I don't know if he's just been sandbagging all season long until they actually hit the postseason.
Saving it for the playoffs.
Right. And then it's like, right, now I'll try.
He's been saving his whole career for the playoffs, maybe.
Which honestly wouldn't shock me if he'd been kind of mailing it in throughout the season and now was going to turn it on when we hit the postseason.
But that's what makes the Rams dangerous, right?
Get himself a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. That's what makes the Rams dangerous.
But yeah, he had some big plays in there. There was one short yardage dive up the middle where he absolutely crushed. Was it Lyle Collins or Zach Martin that he dominated at the point of attack and essentially stuffed that entire play?
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of. He tracked one down along the sideline too.
Yeah.
Different one? Or was that the same one?
This, I think, was his best play or best game
he made
for a long time anyway.
Marcus Peters in the Rams secondary gave up 6 catches for 115, also with one of the worst missed tackles you're going to see. Flailing in the open field.
Yeah, there was some pretty ugly stuff.
Just something to keep an eye on with Peters. Talib comes back and only gives up 2 catches for 14 yards, 47 on 5 targets, 47.9 passer rating. So that's huge having Talib, but man, they still need Peters to either start just picking passes off like he did in Kansas City to kind of make up for the fact that he gives up a lot.
Don't forget playoff superstar Troy Hill got on the field 10 snaps, wasn't targeted. I assume that's just because you don't target Troy Hill in the playoffs.
From last year against Atlanta.
You don't throw Troy Hill's way during the playoffs. So
you just don't touch it.
No.
Just don't touch it. So Jared Goff also seals the deal with a rushing attempt, as expected.
Yeah, of course.
Anything else from this game that stood out to you? Rams offensive line, scheme, system, I think is the story of the game here.
Underrated, kind of under the wire, in fact, hot take from this game from Troy was that Robert Woods is arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. That one kind of flew by without anybody really questioning it. But
I saw everybody on Twitter questioning it. But
that's pretty
I would say
out there.
I'm assuming that he forgot the word all around wide receiver, and it's because he's overweighing the fact that he likes to mix it up as a run blocker. That's got to be it.
Right.
Give him a pass.
I mean, here's the thing. It is crazy, right? But it's not that. It's not. It's relatively close to being arguable, right? This season, Robert Woods was a top 10 wide receiver in terms of PFF grades, and 89.4 overall at the moment. That's right up there with Adam Thielen, with Tyreek Hill,
but
Devontae Adams, etc.
Let's define the grade as well, when we say a grade, we say, here's how well this guy played in his exact situation.
Yeah.
Given what we know about Sean McVay, the scheme, and all these different things that he's done, you're not going to, in isolation, say that Robert Woods is a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. At least I wouldn't. Because it's like the whole number 2 corner thing.
Right.
Right? The number 2 corner that plays great as a number 2 corner and has a top 10 season, I'm not calling him a top 10 cornerback in isolation, in a vacuum. He's a wide receiver 1.
I think you could make the case that he's a top 10 wide receiver. Now, it would be an argument because in that range, you're going to be talking.
I think there's guys graded lower than him. That
right.
Are just
so that's
better.
what I'm saying. In that range, you're going to be talking about guys like T.Y. Hilton, like A.J. Green.
Hilton's better.
There's a lot of good players.
Mike Evans is better.
Right. So I think you could make the argument. The idea that he's the best is kind of crazy.
Yeah, of course it's crazy. Our boy Michael Gallup started looking good, making plays.
This was a thing that he did in college as well. That is, people don't, I think, appreciate how stupidly hard it is to do. But when a ball is coming in over your shoulder, and late on you realize that it's coming too far outside of you, and the only way to adjust to that is to essentially track it across your 2 different shoulders, and you almost lose sight of it in your blind spot because you got a helmet on and it's going to pass behind you. So he looks up in the air, it's coming in over his right shoulder, and you realize late on that actually it's going to come all the way in over your left shoulder. You have to swap shoulders whilst tracking the ball and trying to catch it in a bucket, right? It's extremely hard to do. That may be the single hardest thing that a receiver has to do in terms of just tracking a ball to catch it. And I'm not sure I've ever seen anybody better at it than Gallup.
Willie Mays type catch, but with a helmet on, right?
There you go.
Yeah. How's that analogy? He had 6 catches for 119, 4 first downs.
Yeah. Randy Moss was always really good at that as well, but Gallup is ridiculously good at doing that for a guy that doesn't have
everything
blazing
down the
speed.
field.
Well, this is true.
Yeah. Amari Cooper looked really fast on his touchdown. I don't know if it's because he was lined up against LaMarcus Joyner.
He's also really fast.
I mean he hit the Jets on that one. So we'll talk about Dallas. We'll do a postmortem on Dallas later. By the way, Dak Prescott, he got away with just one of the most brutal passes of the year. He threw it right to the curl flat, dropping defender Ebukam. Threw it right to him. And it got dropped. Other than that, though, Dak did make a few nice plays to keep them in it, but not enough against the better team, the Los Angeles Rams.